The last time we had this guy on the show, he was getting prepared for the Mountain West Championship game with Boise State. He's now the Kentucky offensive coordinator. Bush Hamdan, welcome.
Appreciate you, Andy. Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, my pleasure. So the adjustment to Lexington, you're back in the SEC. You've been in the SEC before at Missouri and at Florida, but you come in. Brock Vandagriff joins the team from Georgia. So you got a new quarterback, got a lot of exciting pieces on this offense. Dane, Barion, Brown. How much fun has it been to work with these guys?
It's been tremendous. I mean, I think from the day I got here, I mean, this is very much so a blue-collar operation. I think, at all levels, from our quarterbacks to our running backs, offensive line, tight ends, receivers. These are guys that want to work. There's a lot of experience. They know what it takes, and that's a huge, huge thing for us.
And then, it's interesting because you have guys like Brock, who's coming from Georgia, Chip Trainum, your running back, who's coming from Ohio State. What do those guys bring when they've been in a program that's had success? Can they help bring, an idea of what the work ethic is like in a program like that? Or is it just that it's easier to bring them in to what you guys do because they've been in a place where they do things right?
I think it's twofold. I think one, it's everything you're saying, Andy. I mean, they've been there, they've done that at the highest level. They know exactly what it's supposed to look like. But I think they also bring a unique perspective to guys that have just been at Kentucky, and never been anywhere else. And certainly there's a lot of things we do extremely well here with what Coach Stoops has in mind. And those guys are able to give that perspective to players of this is how awesome it is here, and you should be proud to be a Wildcat.
So you've been in different situations. Like, you've been an offensive coordinator for coaches who are offensive minded, like Eli Drinkwitz. You've worked with him, but you've worked with coaches who are defensive minded as well. Mark Stoops is obviously, a former defensive coordinator, wants to make sure the offense is run in a way that it's a complementary game rather than let's just score as many points as humanly possible. But how is it different when you're working with a guy like that? Or is it just, hey, I'm going to run the offense and then you just tell me what you need?
Yeah, it's definitely different working for a defensive guy versus an offensive guy. I think there's positives and negatives to both. But I think philosophically, right, it always starts there. I think the number one point of winning football games, doing what it takes to what you said, play complementary football in this league. It's a must, man, with as talented as the rosters are. So there's a lot of alignment there. But certainly getting a perspective from a defensive guy certainly differs from maybe the day-to-day being in there with an offensive guy. But fortunate to have both those experiences prior in my career, and really I'm going to lean on that.
And you've been everywhere. Missouri, Washington, Florida, Boise State. It feels like, for recruiting purposes in the age of the transfer portal, how much does it help to have worked in so many places, probably made contacts in so many different places, so that when you got a recruit out of the portal, you may know a guy. Like, if a person pops up, it's like, okay, I know this guy from when I was at Washington or when I was, and you can make a call and at least get some intel.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I mean, I think that's maybe one of the positives. Obviously, the amount of movement is not something, that I've looked forward to or that I'm necessarily proud of, but that is a huge positive. Is I think at certain times, whether it's relationships with guys on staffs from coast to coast, or the player acquisition piece, I think it's important. And I think nowadays, as you guys know, you're seeing players go from East Coast to West Coast and Midwest to the South, and I think that's critical. It always comes back to those relationships.
So, speaking of saying you've been everywhere, you have really been everywhere. Like, you were born in Kuwait City, and so am I right? Was your family on vacation in the United States when Iraq invaded Kuwait in the early 90s?
Yeah, we were really blessed, man, and fortunate. I think it was about 2 days before the war broke out where we were on one of the last flights out. And so, I don't know, I'm just, I look back at it, and you get older in life and you have different perspectives, and just super fortunate for my parents, my family, for everything to to have been on that flight.
And so you settle in Maryland, and you and your brother wind up playing football. Like, how did you fall in love with football? And at what age was that?
I think, the biggest thing for us, we were baseball players growing up. And I think probably just like any younger brother, you look up to your older brother. And he was one of these guys that played 1 year of high school football and started his senior year at Indiana, and then it was a draft pick and played 6 or 7 years in the NFL. So much of it for me was just trying to follow in his footsteps, and the rest kind of took care of itself.
And you wound up at Boise State as a quarterback back when America hadn't really discovered Boise State yet. And for you, you born in Kuwait, you live in the DC area. Boise's got to feel like another planet at that point.
Yeah, certainly. I think I don't know. I used to joke. I used to for high school, I'd jump on the train in DC and take it for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I remember when Dan Hawkins, who was my head coach there, came to my house. He's like, "Well, you can just kind of sit in your car for about 50 minutes because I think you can drive through the whole city in about 10 minutes." So it was definitely a unique experience for me. Again, I think a strength has been being in a lot of different places and having to adjust and maybe not looking normal or being normal. And I've kind of hung my hat on that and been fortunate for those experiences.
So Hawk is one of the great ones. I think the average college football fan remembers him for when he was at Colorado. This is the Big 12. This ain't intramurals, brother. Like, what's he like when you first meet him? What's that recruiting pitch like from Coach Hawk?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's authentic, and he's one of a kind. He really is. I mean, it starts with just his compassion for people, his care for his family, for his players. But maybe similar to what you hear when you talk to the stories of Coach Leach and everything. You might be sitting there and talking about something completely different for about an hour before you even get to the reason you're there. And so I just think it's those guys who have that unique ability, man, that storytelling ability, and that care for things outside of just the game are really, truly special.
Well, and you go from Coach Hawk to Chris Peterson and Brian Harsin as your head coach and OC, and that I would imagine that's a little bit of a tonal shift right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anybody who knows Chris Peterson, I mean, every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Just the professional approach he had for so many years. But again, just like, again, myself being fortunate enough to be around some of the best head coaches in college football, there's a little piece of each guy that I think you take with them.
So I don't think I've ever gotten to ask you about this, but it is a well-known fact that my favorite game that I've ever attended is the Boise State Oklahoma Fiesta Bowl. I was only there to make sure my laptop would work in the press box because I was covering Florida at the time. They were playing in the national title the next week. And I was like, well, maybe I'll get to see a cool football game. And I got to see the greatest football game ever played. So you're on the sidelines in that game. You actually played a role in the key play, the Jared Zabransky Statue of Liberty handoff to Ian Williams for the 2-point conversion. So did you really tell Harsin, hey, statue might be there?
I think it was certainly in the middle of the game, which, again, I think it's critical there, right? Because when you're a backup quarterback, you got nothing to lose. And so in the middle of the game, we had run a complimentary play out of a similar set, and we did think it was there. I remember at the time when Chris Peterson, he really felt, Adrian Peterson was just getting healthy. He did not want to continue with overtime and how physical those guys were. He said he was going to call it, and then I'm frantically going, "No, are you serious? You're calling this?" And then when it worked, I told him, I said, "Hey, man, I knew it was going to work." So again, now being in this seat versus where I was 15 years ago, it was a lot easier making those decisions back then. So,
just one more question about that game. Did you know Ian was going to propose?
We did not, man, and we we knew he obviously had taken a huge liking into Chrissy, and they had been together for a while, and so just a special time, and I know they're doing awesome in Boise. So it's really a cool story.
That's so great. Now, and you mentioned that, it's different being in the chair you're in now. What is it like now when a player comes up to you during the game, is like, coach, this is open. We got this.
Yeah, you never know. You got your guys. You got your guys that are like complete truth tellers, and then you got your guys who every game are kind of telling you it. So, but I think those guys, for the most part, have a pretty good feel, and I think that's critical too. I think that the communication nowadays with the quarterbacks, certainly with the veteran offensive linemen, they have a good feel for it, and I think ultimately that's a sign of a good offense. That's a sign of good organization. Is that it's simple enough for there to be clear communication to make those in-game adjustments, and I think that's something we strive for.
So one of the things we've talked about at the past couple of weeks, because you got the leagues talking about their different deals with the Apple and Microsoft to get the iPads on the sideline, and we've also talked about the in-helmet communication. How much is that going to change how things work for you as a play caller, having that direct link to the QB before the play?
Yeah, I think it'll be critical. I think the challenge for us right now, to be quite honest, is if that goes in and out during the game. Because as you know, it's a huge advantage for us to be able to directly get the play calls to the quarterbacks, to give them the one or two things we want them to focus on that play. But at the same point, if those do go off in game, that they're still focused, they still know the signals, they've got that ability to still operate it. And so I think it'll be critical. I think it'll be really good for the whole offense and just really simplify things.
Well, and the one thing I've wondered about, because you worked in the NFL, so you've worked with this same system before, but NFL stadiums, with the exception of maybe, Seattle, maybe Arrowhead, the Superdome, but for the most part, they don't get that loud. The road stadiums you're playing in are going to be obscenely loud. You're at Tennessee, you're at Florida. Are they going to be able to even hear? Even if the thing's working perfectly, are they going to be able to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Andy, everything you're talking about, man, is a wait and see, and again, just like anything in college football over the last 5-10 years, you got to adjust and you got to adapt. And I think the critical thing for us, again, is we're going to certainly spend time every third, fourth practice acting like it's like we don't have it, so we're ready for that. I think that's critical. And but from an operation standpoint, again, everything's smooth in the spring, as you guys know, but when live bullets start going, we'll have to be ready to go.
Yeah, and the other thing, with the tablets on the sidelines, I'm curious about, can you make adjustments more quickly? Because I always think about the old school way. You come off the sideline and your position coach says, what did you see? And then they got to translate that to the coordinator, and everybody's got to get together and kind of put the picture together in their head. Now you can just show everybody the video.
Yeah, and I think that can be a huge tool. And again, so much of this, man, as you know, is the 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes in between a drive that you have. Clear and concise communication, and I think that's staff to player, player to staff, staff to staff. I think the critical thing is how we get that information, how we relay it to the players, but also do a great job of relaying the information that we have always been relaying from staff member to staff member, with guys up in the box and guys on the field. That's going to be the challenge.
Now, I know you guys didn't show a whole lot in the spring game, but you were fairly up tempo, and it seems like the Kentucky fans came away kind of excited about what this offense might look like. How excited are you to finally pull the tarp off and really show what this thing is?
Yeah, extremely excited. And I mean, I think, this is our life's work, right? This is every year tweaking it now, 6th, 7th year as a coordinator, that finding that constant state of improvement, mixed in with our personnel and what we think we can do well. And again, I just come back to these players, this program, the culture that's been here. It's a working culture. It's guys that are about the team, and I'm fortunate for that.
Yeah, and it's a very established one, which is, in this day and age of college football, you don't see that very often. How different is it, coming into a program where they've been there more than 10 years? It's you hardly ever see that anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to everything coach has done here, and really it starts with how you treat people. And I think that I think he's got a culture of efficiency. He's got a culture where he's going to hold people accountable but treat people right, and it's impressive. I mean, I actually think that's one of the biggest selling points I have here is there's been numerous guys that have had opportunities to leave, but it's not only the longest tenured SEC head coach, but it's the longest tenured SEC staff and the loyalty they've had to him. So it's been tremendous. Again, you said it. They know exactly who they want to be in all phases of development, the program, what the team looks like. And a lot of times what that allows you to do is not waste time on the front end and continue to grow in areas you need to grow in.
And Brock Vandagriff is a guy that we've known about since he was a recruit. He's been heavily covered. It just you happen to get behind some really good players at Georgia, and now we get a chance to see what he can do. What's it been like working with him?
He's a consummate pro. He's just one of those guys. He's about his business. He loves the position in and out. He's been coached tremendously well at Georgia. So, system wise, there's probably a lot of similarities, maybe some change in verbiage. So, again, I think it's a mature player who loves the game inside and out. And again, it's a guy who's had to wait his turn, and things maybe haven't happened exactly how he wanted them to, but there's certainly some perspective there. There's some grit there, and I know he wants to sing in a bad way.
Well, there's a couple QBs ago at Kentucky, there was a guy who had been waiting his turn, and it all worked out pretty well for him. So we shall see if this is the next one in line. But Bush, can't wait to see the offense. Can't wait to see what it looks like. Thank you so much.
Andy, appreciate you, man, like always.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, brother.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.